Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about the rhetorical appeal of pathos. This is one of the three classical appeals that comes to us from Aristotle's rhetoric, and that's still central to how we think about persuasion today, along with ethos and logos, the other two components of the rhetorical triangle. And I will be creating videos about ethos, logos, and the rhetorical triangle. There will be links for all of those down below as they get posted. But pathos is typically sort of glossed as appealing to the emotions of the audience. And that's not quite accurate, but it's a reasonably good explanation of Aristotle's approach to it, basic approach to it at least. So, pathos, of the three rhetorical appeals, pathos is rooted with the audience itself, the listeners or the readers of a piece of rhetoric, as opposed to being rooted with the speaker, which is ethos, or the writer, or with the content of the message itself, which is logos. Pathos is audience-centered. So, in describing in a sort of basic introductory description of the three classical appeals, Aristotle says, of the modes of persuasion furnished by the spoken word, there are three kinds. The first kind depends on the personal character of the speaker, the second on putting the audience into a certain frame of mind, the third on the proof or apparent proof provided by the words of the speech itself. So pathos is the second of these, the second most important type of persuasion, according to Aristotle, putting the audience into a certain frame of mind. So what does this actually mean? Well, basically, for Aristotle, this is about evoking emotional responses, but there's actually another big component of it that is not necessarily about emotions, but is related to emotions, and that's appealing to the audience's values, to things that are important to them, to particular concepts or philosophies, ideas, concerns that are of value to the audience. And this will often generate an emotional response. So these are interconnected things. And part of the reason that you want to do this is, as Aristotle himself says, let me find it. When people are feeling friendly and placable, they think one sort of thing. When they are feeling angry or hostile, they think either something totally different or the same thing with a different intensity. When they feel friendly to the man who comes before them for judgment, they regard him as having done little wrong, if any. When they feel hostile, they take the opposite view. Again, if they are eager for and have good hopes of a thing that will be pleasant if it happens, they think that it certainly will happen and be good for them. Whereas if they are indifferent or annoyed, they do not think so. So getting people to experience particular emotions puts them into a frame of mind. This is Aristotle's term, a frame of mind. Basically a way of looking at the issue you're trying to persuade them of that will make them more or less sympathetic to the subject matter, right? So we see this all the time, right, with politics. We have criticisms. We have attack ads, right? Be angry. This person's policies are bad for you. They've raised your taxes. They've sold out the country to China, whatever bullshit it is. This is designed to do a particular thing, to get the audience angry. Oh, I don't want my taxes higher. I don't want the country sold out to China. I don't want policies that are bad for me. I am now angry. This puts me in a particular frame of mind toward that politician, right? I am now less likely to support them. And that's a fairly obvious and straightforward point, but it's a really important one rhetorically. Similarly, you've got positive campaign ads, right? Oh, this politician has made life easier, created jobs, they've secured our whatever it is, whatever good things they've done. This puts the viewer, or is intended to put the viewer, into a positive frame of mind regarding that candidate. Yeah, that seems like a good person, a good politician. I want to vote for them. I want to donate to their campaign, whatever the fuck it is. So again, this seems very obvious and straightforward, but it's actually really, really important because it's not as simple. It's not as simple as just, I will say good things or bad things, and therefore people will feel the way I want them to feel. Where the real sort of work of pathos comes in is figuring out how to actually evoke those emotions effectively. And part of this is where the values come in. But I'll come back to that in just a second, because I want to tell you what Aristotle says about this process. So he says, the emotions are all those feelings that so change men as to affect their judgments, and that they are also attended by pain or pleasure, such as anger, pity, fear, and the like, with their opposites. We must arrange what we have to say about each of them under 3 heads. Take, for instance, the emotion of anger. Here we must discover, 1, what the state of mind of angry people is, 2, who the people are with whom they usually get angry, and 3, on what grounds they get angry with them. It is not enough to know 1 or even 2 of these points. Unless we know all 3, we shall be unable to arouse anger in anyone. The same is true of the other emotions. So what that means is we need to understand the emotion of anger, right? We need, in this case, Aristotle takes this, but we could say the same thing of joy, of patriotism, of love, of happiness, whatever it is. What does it actually mean? What does it consist of to experience this emotion? What, who or what do people experience this emotion towards? And why? So what is it? How is it directed? Why does it occur? Why does it occur in the way that it occurs? Or why is it directed in the way that it's directed? These are the 3 central things that Aristotle really says you need to identify in order to effectively evoke an emotional response from the audience, right? So if we take a very, very pathos-driven text, the famous ASPCA commercial with the Sarah McLachlan song in the background, most human beings, I would say 98% of us or more, are physiologically incapable of seeing that commercial without feeling sad, without feeling guilty, without feeling a desire to help these suffered, abandoned, neglected, abused puppies and kittens, etc., etc. And that's a healthy emotional response, by the way. But in order to make that commercial effective, we need to know what it means to be sad. What does that actually involve? What is sadness? In particular, what is sadness as a motivating force that puts us into a particular frame of mind? Why would sadness make us want to donate to the ASPCA? Second, we need to know what kinds of things people get sad about. What are the things that evoke this feeling of sadness? In this case, they go with pictures of puppies and kittens in bandages, small animals like chained to dirt floors or whatever it is, whatever the imagery is, because they know that people often have strong emotional reactions to animals and to animal abuse. And then they put the Sarah McLachlan song "Arms of an Angel" behind it because it's an extremely sad song, and they know the sort of psychology behind how music evokes particular emotions, and so the song amplifies those feelings of sadness, amplifies those feelings of pain that we get, and then on what grounds we experience that. So what does sadness do? What do we get sad about? Why do we get sad about it? We get sad about it because the commercial draws our attention to suffering, to pain, to injustice in the world that as ethical beings, we tend to feel should not exist. We tend to be opposed to suffering, particularly the suffering of creatures that are regarded as innocent. And this is really where the question of values comes in. What are the things that we as readers, listeners, viewers of a piece of rhetoric value? What is important to us? And you need to understand that in order to construct good pathos appeals. So I actually tell my students when I'm teaching rhetoric, pathos is about emotions and values. You evoke emotions in part by appealing to values. If I value patriotism, if that's a really important thing for me, then you can evoke particular emotions through patriotic imagery. Whereas if I don't value patriotism, if that's not something that's important to me, that's not going to be successful. I'm not going to be persuaded. I'm not going to be put into the right frame of mind by that type of imagery. Similarly, if I believe in the value of diversity, if I believe that having a wide range of perspectives from people of different races or ethnicities, religions, genders, sexual orientations, abilities, etc., if I believe that all of these people are important and contribute to building a better world, then appeals to diversity, depictions of diversity, associating your cause with promoting diversity is going to be very persuasive for me. On the other hand, if I lean more toward a maybe traditional or homogenous society in which I'm more comfortable with people who look like me, sound like me, speak like me, think like me, etc., then I'm not going to be put into the same frame of mind. But these things work the opposite direction as well, right? Like if you are a person who is very sort of skeptical of patriotism, and in the US right now, there are good reasons to be skeptical of patriotism, which is also often sort of code for a form of ultra-nationalism that has extremely violent and problematic associations. So, I mean, if you are skeptical of patriotism, then I could appeal to that. I could use your opposition to the value of patriotism to put you into a particular frame of mind. Probably anger, probably resentment, maybe fear, something like this. So a value can be used either to say, hey, we all share the same values. I'm going to build the connection between yourself as a speaker, as a listener, reader, viewer, whatever it is, and myself as a rhetor. Do the thing I want you to do because it will help fulfill your value. Or you can go the opposite direction. Hey, this is a value that is dangerous or problematic or bad in some way. I am appealing to it in order to put you in a frame of mind where you will oppose this thing and therefore support me, support whatever I want. So this is ultimately what pathos is about. It is about directing people's emotions in a particular way so that they will be persuaded to do what you want. And that persuasion, that evocation of emotions is typically built out of their values, what's important to them, what they believe in.